So we're going to get through the rest of the Supreme Court, as there were just a few small corrections I had to make. If you haven't known, there's a new justice on the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is a Biden appointee who was sworn in just recently. But we are in the time of the Roberts Court. The courts are named after the chief justices of the time. Right now we are living in a court led by Chief Justice John Roberts, and he was a Bush Jr. appointee in 2005, and he serves with Ketanji Brown Jackson, Clarence Thomas, who was a Bush Sr. appointee, Neil Gorsuch, Trump, Elena Kagan, Obama, Sonia Sotomayor, Obama as well, Samuel Alito, Bush Jr., and then Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, both Trump appointees. Now, what do these people look like? I ask students that every semester. We play a little game, which unfortunately I can't do with you since you're a virtual crowd. But we take a look and we kind of try to match a name to a face. This is Ketanji Brown Jackson. That is Clarence Thomas. This is Elena Kagan. And that is the Chief, John Roberts. Samuel Alito. Amy Coney Barrett. Brett Kavanaugh. Neil Gorsuch. And Sonia Sotomayor. And that's the court. So we'll look at a modern-ish case, Hamdan versus Rumsfeld. So in this case, we have Salim Ahmed Hamdan, who is the petitioner, suing Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of State. Suing Donald Rumsfeld is effectively suing the United States government. Donald Rumsfeld, if you don't know, has passed. So he is no longer with us. So Salim Ahmed Hamdan, who was anyway, bin Laden's former chauffeur, he was captured by Afghani forces and he was imprisoned by the U.S. military in Guantanamo Bay. So he filed what's called a writ of habeas corpus, which means in Latin, produce the body. So he filed that in the federal district court to challenge his detention. And before that district court could rule on the petition, Hamdan received a hearing from a military tribunal, and that military tribunal designated him an enemy combatant, which is something you do not want to be designated as, because you get treated horribly. So a few months go by, the district court does end up granting Hamdan's habeas petition and ruled that he must first be given a hearing to determine whether he was a prisoner of war under the Geneva Conventions before he could be tried by a military commission. And the Geneva conventions, there are more than one of them, are rules kind of war that govern how you treat prisoners, what you're supposed to do for them, how, maybe you're not supposed to fire on civilian buildings, all these things. It's a lengthy read. I took a class on the laws of war in grad school, so I got through that and the Military Code of Justice. Both great documents, but it took me a minute to read them and get my head around them. So the Circuit Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia reversed the decision of the District Court. So the Circuit Court reversed the District Court's decision. However, finding that the Geneva Convention could not be enforced in federal court and that the establishment of military tribunals had been authorized by Congress and was therefore not unconstitutional. So the Circuit Court took a look at the case and the facts of the case and said, we cannot enforce the Geneva Conventions in court in our country. We generally, as a country, don't subscribe to a whole lot of international laws. We don't subject our people to, say, the the decisions of the United Nations or things like that, and that's a topic for a whole other class called International Relations, which I happen to teach if you want to sign up for it in the spring. So, since Congress had created military tribunals, they had to be constitutional because everything Congress does is constitutional, right? The answer to that is no. So, what they had to decide: may the rights protected by the Geneva Conventions be enforced in federal court through habeas corpus petitions. That was one thing they had to decide. Was the military commission established to try Hamdan and others for alleged war crimes in the War on Terror authorized by the Congress, or the inherent powers of the president? So they had two questions they needed to decide. The answers are yes and no. So they voted 5-3. If you know, that's 8, not 9. So Roberts recused himself, the Chief Justice, because he had worked on this case when the court wasn't in recess. He had heard it in a different court. So in a 5-3 decision authored by Justice John Paul Stevens, held that neither an act of Congress nor the inherent powers of the executive laid out in the Constitution expressly authorized the sort of military commission at issue in this case. So the Constitution doesn't give anybody the power to be doing what was going on, holding Hamdan, denying him justice. There's a whole thing about Guantanamo Bay, too. That's a topic for a whole other class. So because that express authorization is not there, the commission had to comply with the ordinary laws of the United States and the laws of war. So they had to give Hamdan justice, maybe a fair trial. So the Geneva Convention, they found, could be enforced by the Supreme Court, along with the statutory Uniform Code of Military Justice. And his exclusion, Hamdan's exclusion from certain parts of his trial, deemed classified by that military commission, violated both of these. And the trial was therefore illegal. Justices Scalia, Thomas, and Alito, Scalia was a former justice on the Supreme Court. Thomas, Alito are still there, but all three of them are very conservative people. Chief Justice John Roberts, as I said, had heard this case on the D.C. Circuit Court, so he recused himself. He didn't take part in the decision. And please watch this. I put these links up there for a reason. So this summer 2022 class is part of your homework. I will put up a flip grid for it. And that's that. That is the end of the Supreme Court. Now we'll start on the amendments.